Good evening and welcome to another edition of Virginia's Vital Vodcast. I am coming to you this Wednesday, February 17, 2015 from Hills Elementary, located in Mingo Junction, Ohio. With this performance-based project, you will find the implementation of the GROR, also known as the Gradual Release of Responsibility. This model includes 4 major areas: focus on lesson, guided instruction, collaborative learning, and independent work. Also within the lesson, I implemented additional strategies: homework, assessments, similarities and differences, and finally, cues and questions. In this edition, we will be discussing how to compare and contrast fractions and what are equivalent fractions. Let's get started. What are fractions? We learned last week that fractions are parts of a whole. In this lesson, we always start out with a review of previously mastered concepts. Each group will be given a problem from the Common Core review page. Remind the students to underline those key words that help them know what operation they are performing and what numbers they are working with. When everyone is done, go over the answers and have them write on an index card rating themselves 0, 1, or 2 as to how they performed within their group. We then move on to mathematical background and what the students must have to know in order to understand the concepts being taught. In this particular lesson, students need to know in the preceding topics, students compared fractions using fraction strips. This lesson restricts the comparison to one type. Students compare with fraction strips, but they are also given a generalization. The generalization is, if 2 fractions have the same denominator, the fraction is with the greater numerator is the greater fraction. So the observation that 4 is greater than 2 leads to the conclusion that 4/6 is greater than 2/6. Fraction strips provide a visual confirmation. Next, we will have the students work with partners on the problem-based learning problem. Always make sure you pose the problem. The students that are paired together are not, and I cannot stress this enough, are not paired according to their ability. Marzano states that when you have students of the same ability work together to solve problems, they actually lose percentile points. When the students have finished and each group has been given a chance to explain how they solved their problem, have the students write down on the back of their index cards one good thing they did or how they helped their partner in this problem-based learning. And in this particular lesson, here's the problem-based learning. First, you need to pose the problem by stating you already know how to compare whole numbers. Today you will learn how to compare pairs of fractions with the same denominator. Connect by saying, how are the fractions 2/6 and 4/6 the same, and how are they different? You are looking for your students to recall the terms denominator and numerator. Next, you will need to pose the problem. Joe and Dan both walk to school. Joe lives 5/8 mile from the school. Dan lives 2/8 of a mile from school. Who walks the shorter distance to school? Write a number sentence that compares the distances. Work with a partner and use fraction strips to help you. When everyone is finished, let them share their findings with the class. Now I will show you a short video that explains what it means to compare fractions using the Envision Math tools found within the curriculum. Within the Envision Math series, there is the toolbar in which every student is permitted to go and use. I recommend going and using the toolbar only because really it's a great visual. So this week we're going to be on this particular lesson, we're going to be doing comparing. So you saw I grabbed one whole, and I left the line bar up here because I feel that it's vital for the students to be able to see what 1 is. So here's 1. And then we are going to be comparing fractions. So if I can take out, if you look over here, so we have halves, thirds, fourths, fifths, sixths, eighths, tenths, and twelfths. I'm doing 3rd grade, so we're just starting out, so let us do 2/3. So I can pick out 2/3 and and they can see what 2/3 looks like compared to a whole. Then I can take 1/3, because again, with comparing fractions, our denominators, and we remember the word is denominator because denominator starts with D, so we always think D down. So our denominators both have 3's at the bottom, so our denominators are the same. So we need to make sure we look at our numerators. And this is it's really nice visual tool for them to visually see 1/3 is smaller than 2/3, or 2/3 is greater than 1/3. And I can also grab and put 2/3 right over top, and they can see how 2/3 and 2/3 are equivalent fractions. And then if they want to do a different problem, they can use the eraser, and it can erase parts. It can erase the whole. It does a lot of neat, it's a very useful tool. So I'm going to take the 1 out again, because again I always want them to visually see what 1 looks like. And let's do a larger one. Let's bring out 7/8, because 7/8 is, 8s are a little harder to visualize in my opinion. Quarters are easy because they can think of a dollar. Even thirds, halves, those are all easy. But when you get 5, 6, 8s on up, it's a little rough. So let's look at 4/8, or 7/8, excuse me, and I'm going to bring down 4/8. So again, they can see we have the same denominator, so I can look at the numerator and see that 7 is greater than 4. Again, this is a very useful tool. I recommend for all my students to use it no matter what ability level they're at. And I hope that you enjoyed using this. Remember that in the GROG, it is I do first. So as a teacher, I would bring this up. I would do the I do, which is where the students would watch me. And then we would do the we do, where I would have them come up and we would collaborate together. Or they could do it at their seats on their iPads. And then they would eventually go to the you do when I see that they are comfortable enough. But I would not send them to do the you do until that I have proof that they have an understanding of the concept. The next lesson will be about equivalent fractions. As I stated, with every lesson it is important to do a Common Core review. Again, this is where problems are broken down and where each pod gets one question. The students work together as a group to look for those key words and solve the problem. Remember to make sure that when students are finished, they rate themselves in the group, within their group. 0, 1, or a 2. 2 being very active members, 1 being they were very little active, or 0, they did nothing at all. Equivalent fractions mathematical background. Equivalent fractions describe the same amount. In this lesson, students use models to find equivalent fractions. They also find the simplest form of a fraction. They will use these skills in later lessons when they compare fractions, add and subtract fractions, and write the sums and differences in simplest form. Make sure that students understand that the models must be the same size for the fractions to be equivalent. You can provide them with fraction strips to help them model equivalencies. However, I would again stress, if you're going to give them fraction strips, make sure you provide them and they do not draw them themselves, for the fractions, they wouldn't be very accurate. They would be off size. Encourage students to look for patterns when writing equivalent fractions. This can help them recognize that the fractions with the greater denominator also has the greater numerator. It also lays the groundwork for multiplying, dividing to find equivalent fractions here and in later lessons. After making sure the students have the background knowledge that is needed for this lesson, then have them work with their partner on a problem-based learning problem. When they have completed the problem and everyone has been given a chance to explain how they arrived at their answer, have them again write on the back of their index card one thing that they did well in order to help their partner come up with the solution. Next, we are going to see a video using the Envision Math tools that will help explain what equivalent fractions are and how they can use the tools within the program to help them. In Lesson 2, Equivalent Fractions, again, the students need to go under the Tools, which is found in the Envision Math series. You can go up to the top here. You can see where it says Equivalent Shapes. They can either use pie or they can go with a rectangular. That's really their preference. It doesn't really matter. But the whole point of this is, again, this is really nice to set up. So we have 1/2 over here, and it tells you up here at the top 1/2, and then over here I have nothing right now. So when we're doing equivalent fractions, we are no longer having the same denominator. We're having different denominators. So it's a little harder for the students to see, but this program, again, it's extremely nice to use this. So it shows you that 1/2 is greater than 1/3. I can take my eraser and it erases it back down to nothing. And I can do 1/4 and then hit 1/4 again, and wow, look, 1/2 is equal to 2/4. So, you know, to me, I think it's a very useful and vital tool. It helps with explicit instruction that is needed in the GROR. And it's nice because the students are able to manipulate and use it themselves. Again, I wouldn't recommend them doing this by themselves. Go through the steps. Do the I do the we do, and then set them off on the you do when you feel that they are, or when they show you that they're comfortable and able to do so. Let's look at a couple more. I'll flip it over to the pie so you can kind of take a little look. Let's change this. We'll change it to, let's do a 1/5, because a 1/5, again, it's kind of hard to see what a 1/5 looks like. So over here, let's do a 1/5 over here, and we're going to add a 1/6. Well, a 1/5 is greater than a 1/6, which you'd have to teach your students that if the numerators are same on the top, you need to look at the denominator. And if the denominator over here, 5, even though it's lower on the number line, it's still a greater piece. So that's a little abstract. So again, this helps to make it concrete, visually be able to see it. Let's add another 1/6. So 2/6. Oh, look, the sign changed. 1/5 is less than 2/6. Again, this is very nice. It's a very nice tool to use. I would recommend you use it within your instruction. As part of the GROR, you can assign the students homework. I chose to provide the students with differentiated homework based upon their ability. The next 3 slides are the homework pages for the students. Remember to not give this homework if the student does not have an understanding of the concept. In front of you, you will see the below level only consists of 5 problems, and it has a very detailed explanation up on top. On level consists of 10 problems, so it's double the problems, and you see that there's actually 3 word problems compared to the below level, which has 1. And then the above level, there's no answers, like it doesn't have the fractions like the previous did. They have to write the problem in a fractional form and then find the match. Why teach fractions? Fractions are something that you will use in some cases every day of your life, whether you're cooking a meal for your family and you only have a 1/4 measuring cup and the directions call for a whole, or you're at the local deli and you need to order lunch meat. Fractions are all around. It is important to explain this to your students. Resources in this vodcast came from Pearson's Envision Math series, and pictures and sound came from Creative Commons. Thank you for listening, and I hope you have a great evening.